In the affluent neighborhood of Westfield Heights, where mansions stood like sentinels and luxury cars gleamed in circular driveways, lived the Montgomery family. Patricia Montgomery was known throughout the community for two things: her ruthless social climbing and her daughter Victoria's incomparable beauty. Victoria Montgomery had grown up with everything money could buy: designer clothes, exclusive education, and a mother who had groomed her since birth to make a prestigious match. At 25, with her cascade of golden hair, azure eyes, and porcelain complexion, Victoria was the crown jewel of Westfield Heights' eligible bachelorettes. But the Montgomery household held another resident, one who moved like a shadow through the grand halls of their mansion. 17-year-old Lily had come to them as a foster child 5 years ago when her last living relative, her grandmother, had passed away. Patricia had taken her in partly for the social acclaim of such charity and partly to have someone to manage the household tasks she deemed beneath Victoria. Lily was everything Victoria was not: quiet where Victoria was vivacious, modest where Victoria was bold, with simple dark hair and eyes that seemed too old for her young face. She attended the local public school, wore second-hand clothes, and spent her evenings studying while Victoria attended galas and charity events. What no one realized, least of all Patricia, was that the comfortable life they had all grown accustomed to was about to be upended by the arrival of one man, Alexander Chen, the 30-year-old tech billionaire who had just moved to Westfield Heights and was, according to Patricia's impeccable sources, looking for a wife. Victoria. He's confirmed for dinner on Friday. Patricia's voice echoed through the Montgomery mansion as she burst into her daughter's room without knocking. Victoria barely looked up from her phone, where she was scrutinizing her latest Instagram post's performance. "Who's confirmed, Mother?" she asked, swiping to check her notifications. "Alexander Chen. The most eligible bachelor in the country, if not the world." Patricia's eyes gleamed with the fervor of a general plotting a decisive military campaign. "He's worth billions, Victoria. Billions. And he's only 30. Imagine what this could mean for us, for you." Victoria finally set down her phone, her interest piqued. "The tech guy? The one who invented that app everyone's using?" "Not just an app, darling. A revolutionary artificial intelligence platform that's changed global communication. He's a genius, and he's coming here." Patricia was already mentally redecorating the mansion with wedding photos. "We need to prepare. Everything must be perfect." In the doorway, Lily stood quietly with a basket of freshly laundered clothes. She had heard everything, as she often did, invisible until needed. "Lily, don't just stand there," Patricia snapped, finally noticing her. "We need the good china polished, the silver buffed, and I want fresh flowers throughout the house. Not those common daisies you brought in last time, orchids and roses only." "Yes, Mrs. Montgomery," Lily replied softly, setting down the laundry basket. "And for heaven's sake, make yourself scarce on Friday night. The last thing we need is for Alexander Chen to be reminded that we harbor charity cases." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Mother, don't be dramatic. Lily can serve dinner as usual. She's practically furniture anyway." Lily's face remained impassive, though something flickered behind her eyes, a brief spark of hurt quickly extinguished by years of practice. She nodded and silently withdrew from the room. The next 3 days were a whirlwind of preparations. Patricia had the entire house professionally cleaned, hired a renowned chef to prepare a 7-course meal, and even redecorated the formal dining room with art pieces she believed would impress a tech billionaire with international tastes. Victoria was subjected to a beauty regimen that would have exhausted a professional model: facials, hair treatments, manicures, and hours spent with Patricia's personal stylist selecting the perfect outfit that would highlight her beauty without appearing too eager. Through it all, Lily worked tirelessly behind the scenes, running errands, coordinating with vendors, and ensuring that all of Patricia's exacting standards were met. On Friday afternoon, as she arranged the last of the orchids in the entryway, she allowed herself a moment of curiosity. "Mrs. Montgomery, what is Mr. Chen like?" she asked as Patricia swept through on her 15th inspection tour of the day. Patricia paused, surprised by the question. "Alexander Chen is brilliant, of course. Started his company in his dorm room at MIT and turned it into a tech empire by 25. He's very private, barely any social media presence, which is ironic given his business. Asian American, but educated at the finest schools. She narrowed her eyes. Why do you ask? Lily shrugged. Just curious about who I'll be serving dinner to. Well, you won't be serving anybody if you don't finish those flowers and then help Victoria with her hair. Her regular stylist had an emergency. But I don't know how, figure it out. Patricia snapped. Victoria needs to look perfect tonight. Hours later, as the grandfather clock in the hall chimed 7, the doorbell rang. Patricia smoothed her designer dress, checked her reflection one last time, and opened the door with a practiced smile of welcome. Alexander Chen was not what she had expected. In her mind, she had pictured someone imposing, perhaps a bit ostentatious given his wealth. Instead, the man who stood on her doorstep was of average height, dressed in a simple but impeccably tailored navy suit. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and behind rimless glasses, his eyes were warm and observant. The only hint of his extraordinary wealth was the sleek, limited edition watch on his wrist, a detail Patricia's experienced eye caught immediately. Mr. Chen, welcome to our home, she gushed, extending her hand. We're so delighted you could join us. Alexander's handshake was firm and brief. Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Montgomery. I've heard wonderful things about your family. As Patricia led him into the grand foyer, Victoria made her entrance. She descended the staircase with practiced grace, her emerald gown catching the light, her golden hair arranged in elegant waves. She was, even Patricia had to admit, breathtaking. Mr. Chen, may I present my daughter, Victoria? Victoria extended her hand with a dazzling smile. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Chen. Or may I call you Alexander? Alexander took her hand politely. Alexander is fine. And the pleasure is mine. As they moved toward the dining room, Alexander glanced around the opulent space with interest. You have a beautiful home. The art collection is particularly impressive. Patricia beamed. Thank you. We're passionate about supporting emerging artists. It was a lie, she had purchased most pieces on the recommendation of her decorator, but it sounded good. As they settled at the dining table, Lily appeared from the kitchen doorway. She was dressed in a simple black dress that served as her uniform for such occasions, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. She began to serve the first course with quiet efficiency. Alexander's eyes followed her movements with a curiosity that made Patricia tense. And who is this? He asked. Before Patricia could formulate an answer that would minimize Lily's presence, Victoria spoke up. That's just Lily. She's our, what would you call it, mother? Our ward? Charity project? Something like that. Lily's hands trembled slightly as she set down Alexander's plate, but her face remained composed. Lily is our foster daughter, Patricia clarified, trying to strike a tone between charitable benefactor and someone not overly attached. She came to us during difficult circumstances a few years ago. Alexander looked directly at Lily, then the first person that evening to truly see her. It's nice to meet you, Lily. Lily looked up, startled at being addressed. You too, Mr. Chen, she murmured before retreating to the kitchen. Alexander watched her go with an unreadable expression before turning back to his hosts. How thoughtful of you to open your home to someone in need. Patricia preened at what she took to be a compliment, unaware of the slight edge in Alexander's voice. Well, one must do what one can for the less fortunate. Throughout dinner, Patricia orchestrated the conversation like a symphony, highlighting Victoria's accomplishments, her charity work, carefully selected for maximum social impact, and her education at exclusive private schools. Victoria played her part beautifully, laughing at the right moments, asking Alexander intelligent questions about his work, and occasionally touching his arm for emphasis. Alexander was polite and attentive, though Patricia noted with some concern that his gaze occasionally drifted to the kitchen door through which Lily appeared and disappeared as she served each course. The dinner was, by all appearances, a success. Alexander seemed impressed by the food, the wine, and the conversation. As Lily served dessert, an elaborate chocolate creation that had cost Patricia a small fortune, Alexander suddenly addressed her directly again. "Did you make this, Lily?" he asked. Lily looked up, surprised once more at being noticed. "No, sir. Mrs. Montgomery hired Chef Renaud for tonight's dinner." "But you do cook for the family normally?" Before Lily could answer, Patricia interjected. "Lily helps with many household tasks. She's quite handy that way." Alexander nodded, his eyes still on Lily. "What grade are you in, Lily?" "I'm a senior at Westfield Public High School," she answered quietly. "Any plans for college?" Patricia laughed lightly. "I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Lily's circumstances are limited. But she's very practical, aren't you, dear?" Lily's eyes dropped to the floor. "I applied for some scholarships," she said simply. Something in Alexander's expression shifted. "What subject interests you most?" For the first time that evening, Lily's face lit up with genuine animation. "Computer science. I'm particularly interested in AI applications for environmental conservation." Alexander's eyebrows rose in clear interest, while Patricia and Victoria exchanged alarmed glances. This was not part of the script. "That's actually my foundation's current focus," Alexander said. "We're developing AI systems to track deforestation and illegal wildlife trafficking." "I read about that," Lily exclaimed, then immediately seemed to remember her place and stepped back. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't interrupt." "Not at all," Alexander assured her. "I'd love to hear your thoughts." What followed was a 5-minute exchange that left Patricia and Victoria watching in speechless horror as Alexander and Lily engaged in a technical discussion that might as well have been in a foreign language. Lily's usual reserved demeanor had vanished, replaced by passionate intelligence as she referenced research papers and coding frameworks that Alexander seemed impressed she knew about. Patricia finally managed to regain control of the situation by suggesting they move to the sitting room for coffee. As they did, she firmly directed Lily to clear the dessert plates and bring the coffee tray later. In the sitting room, Patricia deployed her social skills to redirect the conversation to safer topics: Victoria's recent charity gala, the Montgomery family's summer plans in the Hamptons, and an upcoming art exhibition where Victoria's portrait would be featured. When Lily brought in the coffee tray, Alexander looked up with a smile. "Lily, do you have a moment to join us?" Patricia nearly spilled her coffee. "Oh, Lily has homework to finish, don't you, dear?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Mrs. Montgomery." "What are you working on?" Alexander persisted. "A programming project, actually," Lily admitted. "I'm building a simple predictive model for my advanced computer science class." "That sounds far more interesting than our small talk," Alexander said. "Perhaps you could show me before I leave?" "I'd love to see your approach." Patricia's smile became fixed and brittle. "Alexander, Victoria was just about to play the piano for us. She's quite accomplished, you know." Victoria, taking her cue, moved gracefully to the grand piano in the corner and began to play a Chopin piece she had memorized for precisely such occasions. Alexander listened politely, but his eyes kept drifting to where Lily stood uncertainly by the door. When Victoria finished, Alexander applauded appreciatively. "Beautiful. You're very talented, Victoria." Victoria beamed. "Thank you. I've been playing since I was 4. "I should probably be going," Alexander said, rising. "I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Thank you for a lovely evening." Patricia's heart sank. This was not how she had envisioned the evening ending. No invitation for Victoria to attend his charity gala next week, no suggestion of meeting again soon. Just polite thanks and a departure. As they walked toward the front door, Alexander paused. "Lily, if you're interested, my foundation offers internships for high school students with an aptitude for programming. Here's my card, you should apply." He handed Lily a business card, which she accepted with wide eyes. Patricia watched in dismay as her carefully constructed plans began to crumble. "That's very kind," Patricia said stiffly. "Though Lily has many responsibilities here." "Education should always come first," Alexander replied, his tone pleasant but firm. "Especially for someone with obvious talent." After Alexander left, Patricia rounded on Lily. "How dare you embarrass us like that? Showing off, inserting yourself into conversations where you don't belong." Lily clutched the business card. "He asked me questions. I just answered them. You deliberately tried to draw attention to yourself." Patricia was nearly shouting now. "After everything we've done for you." Victoria, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke. "Mother, stop. Lily didn't do anything wrong." She turned to Lily with a thoughtful expression. "You really know about all that computer stuff?" Lily nodded cautiously. "Huh." Victoria seemed to be reassessing something. "That's actually pretty cool." Patricia stared at her daughter in disbelief. "Victoria, go to your room. I need to speak with Lily alone." Once Victoria had gone, Patricia snatched the business card from Lily's hand. "You will not be applying for any internship. Your duty is here, with this family that took you in when no one else would." Lily's eyes filled with tears for the first time in years. "Please, Mrs. Montgomery. This could be my chance for college for a future." "Your future is what I decide it is," Patricia said coldly. "Now go finish the dishes." Over the next week, Patricia launched a full-scale campaign to salvage her plans. She made calls to mutual acquaintances, arranged to accidentally run into Alexander at his favorite coffee shop, and even suggested to Victoria that they attend a tech conference where he was speaking. None of it worked. Alexander was unfailingly polite but distant. Meanwhile, Lily had become even quieter than usual, moving through the house like a ghost. Patricia had caught her several times staring at the computer in the family study, but she always quickly switched screens when Patricia entered. 2 weeks after the dinner, Patricia returned from a lunch meeting to find a sleek black car parked in her driveway. Her heart leapt. Alexander had come back. Perhaps he had reconsidered Victoria after all. She hurried inside, calling out, "Victoria! Come downstairs immediately." But it wasn't Victoria who answered. From the sitting room came Alexander's voice. "She's not here, Mrs. Montgomery. It's you I came to see." Patricia paused to check her reflection in the hall mirror before entering the sitting room with a practiced smile. "Alexander. What a lovely surprise." Alexander was standing by the window, his expression serious. "I apologize for coming unannounced. Is Lily here?" Patricia's smile faltered. "Lily? She's at school, I believe." "Why do you ask?" "Because I received an application from her for our internship program. It was brilliant, one of the best we've seen. But when we tried to contact her to schedule an interview, all our emails bounced back." Patricia feigned confusion. "How strange. Perhaps she made a typing error." "Perhaps," Alexander said, his tone suggesting he didn't believe it for a second. "The application included a remarkable project, a predictive model for tracking endangered species movements. Our senior engineers were impressed. Well, when she returns from school, I'll be sure to tell her you stopped by." "I think I'll wait, if you don't mind," Alexander said firmly, seating himself. "School should be out soon, shouldn't it?" Patricia had no choice but to offer him tea and make uncomfortable small talk while they waited. An hour later, they heard the front door open and close quietly. "Lily?" Alexander called out. There was a moment of silence, then Lily appeared in the doorway, her expression a mixture of shock and hope. "Mr. Chen. What are you doing here?" "I came to talk about your internship application," he said, rising. "It's exceptional." Lily's eyes darted to Patricia, who was seething silently. I didn't think it went through. I never heard back." "That's because someone has been deleting your emails," Alexander said quietly. And disconnecting your calls. Patricia's face flushed. That's an outrageous accusation. Alexander turned to her. Is it? Because our IT team traced the access log. Someone logged into Lily's email account and deleted every communication from my foundation. Someone using this house's IP address. The room fell silent. Lily stared at Patricia with dawning understanding. You didn't want me to have this opportunity, she whispered. Don't be ridiculous, Patricia snapped, but her voice lacked conviction. I was protecting you from disappointment. You can't possibly be qualified for such a position. Actually, Alexander interjected, she's more than qualified. Lily, we'd like to offer you the internship. It comes with a stipend and, if you successfully complete the program, a full scholarship to MIT. Lily's face transformed with joy, but it quickly faded as she looked at Patricia. I can't. Mrs. Montgomery needs me here. She's given me a home when no one else would. A home? Alexander echoed. Or unpaid labor. Patricia stood up, trembling with anger. How dare you come into my house and interfere with my family? Lily is a minor under my guardianship. I decide what's best for her. Actually, Alexander said calmly, I took the liberty of looking into Lily's foster situation. It seems the county has some concerns about her placement here. Concerns about educational neglect, possible exploitation. They're quite interested in reviewing her case. Patricia blanched. You've been investigating me? I've been trying to help a brilliant young woman access the opportunities she deserves, Alexander corrected. Lily, you don't have to decide right now. But know that if you want this internship, we can arrange alternative housing for you. A proper foster home where your education will be prioritized. Lily was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to do, she admitted. At that moment, Victoria walked in, stopping short at the tableau before her. What's going on? When no one answered immediately, she looked from her mother's flushed face to Lily's tears to Alexander's resolute expression. Seriously, what did I miss? Alexander explained briefly about the internship offer and Patricia's interference. Victoria listened with growing dismay. Mother, you didn't, she finally said. Tell me you didn't sabotage Lily's chance like that. Patricia turned to her daughter, expecting alliance. Victoria, I was thinking of you. He was clearly using Lily to get close to you, and stop it. Victoria interrupted, her voice uncharacteristically sharp. Not everything is about me. Or you and your social climbing. She turned to Lily. You should take the internship. You've earned it. Lily looked between them all, overwhelmed. I need some time to think, she said finally, and fled upstairs, left alone with Victoria and Alexander. Patricia attempted damage control. She's obviously upset. Victoria, perhaps you could go talk to her, encourage her to see reason. No, Mother, Victoria said firmly. For once in your life, this isn't about what you want. Or what I want. She turned to Alexander. I'm sorry about all this. Lily deserves better. Alexander nodded. She does. And so, I suspect, do you, Victoria? With that, he excused himself to make a phone call, leaving mother and daughter facing each other in uncomfortable silence. 3 months later, the Montgomery mansion was quieter than it had ever been. Lily had moved out the day after Alexander's visit, going to live with a new foster family, a kind, middle-aged couple where the husband was a high school math teacher and the wife was a librarian. They had a modest home with a small bedroom just for Lily, complete with a desk for her studies and bookshelves for her growing collection of computer science texts. Patricia had fought it initially, threatening legal action, but had backed down when faced with the county's questions about Lily's working hours and educational support. In the end, she had signed the transfer papers with icy dignity, telling Lily she was ungrateful and would regret leaving such a privileged home. Victoria, in a move that had shocked her mother to the core, had helped Lily pack and had even visited her several times in her new home. On a warm Saturday in June, Victoria pulled up to the modest suburban house where Lily now lived. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror before grabbing a gift bag from the passenger seat and walking to the door. Lily opened it with a smile brighter than any Victoria had seen during her years at the Montgomery mansion. "You made it. Come in, everyone's in the backyard." "Everyone?" Victoria asked, following Lily through the house. "Just a small graduation party," Lily explained. "My foster parents, a few friends from school," and she hesitated. "Alexander's coming too." Victoria nodded, unsurprised. "You've been seeing a lot of him, huh?" Lily blushed. "It's not like that. He's my mentor. He's been helping me prepare for MIT this fall." She led Victoria to the backyard, where a modest gathering was in progress. A "Congratulations Graduate" banner hung between two trees, and a table held a homemade cake and punch. Victoria handed Lily the gift bag. "It's not much, just something I thought you might like." Lily opened it to find a beautiful leather-bound journal with her name embossed on the cover. "Victoria, it's perfect. Thank you." They were interrupted by the arrival of Alexander, who greeted Lily with a warm hug and Victoria with a friendly nod. "Congratulations, valedictorian," he said to Lily. "That speech was incredible." Lily beamed. "I still can't believe I actually did it." "I can," Alexander said simply. "You've always had it in you. You just needed someone to believe in you." As the party continued, Victoria found herself sitting alone, watching Lily laugh and talk with her new foster parents and Alexander. There was an ease to Lily now, a confidence that had been buried under years of Patricia's constant criticism and demands. Alexander eventually came to sit beside Victoria. "It was good of you to come," he said. "It means a lot to Lily." Victoria sipped her punch. "I'm trying to be better. Less like my mother." She glanced at him. "You never were interested in me, were you?" Alexander smiled slightly. "You're a beautiful, accomplished young woman, Victoria. But no, not romantically. Though I admit I initially accepted your mother's dinner invitation out of curiosity. Her reputation precedes her." "As a social climbing barracuda, you mean," Victoria said dryly. "I wouldn't put it quite that way." "I would." Victoria sighed. "The funny thing is, watching Lily these past months, how hard she works, how genuinely passionate she is about her studies, it's made me realize I've never felt that way about anything. I've just done what mother expected." Alexander considered her thoughtfully. "It's never too late to find your own path." "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you," Victoria said. "I'm thinking of going back to school in the fall. For a business degree. I've always been good with numbers," and she hesitated. "I thought maybe your foundation might need business interns too." "Not because of who I am, but I'd work hard, and we'd be happy to consider your application," Alexander said. "On its merits." Victoria felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "Thank you. That's all I ask." Later, as Victoria prepared to leave, Lily walked her to her car. "How's your mother?" Lily asked quietly. Victoria grimaced. "Lonely. Angry. She's thrown herself into the charity circuit even more since you left. Barely speaks to me since I told her I'm moving out next month." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's not your fault." Victoria hesitated. "She misses you, you know. Though she'd never admit it. The house is too quiet without you." Lily looked surprised. "Really? Really?" She actually tried to make coffee by herself last week. It was a disaster. They both laughed, then Victoria grew serious. "You know, I always envied you." "Me?" Lily looked genuinely shocked. "But you had everything." "I had things," Victoria corrected. "You had purpose. Direction. You knew who you were even when Mother tried to make you invisible. I never knew who I was apart from what she wanted me to be. Lily touched Victoria's arm gently. You do now. And for what it's worth, I like this Victoria much better. As Victoria drove away, she glanced in her rearview mirror to see Alexander joining Lily in the driveway. He said something that made Lily laugh, then offered her his arm as they walked back to the house together. They didn't look like a couple not yet, but they looked like two people who genuinely respected and cared for each other. Victoria smiled to herself, feeling a strange mix of sadness and hope. Music shifts to something uplifting and hopeful. 1 year later, Patricia Montgomery stood nervously on the front porch of a modest suburban home, clutching a gift bag. She had aged visibly in the past year, the stress of social setbacks and Victoria's increasing independence etching new lines around her eyes and mouth. She rang the doorbell before she could lose her courage. The door opened to reveal Lily, looking more mature in jeans and a MIT sweatshirt, her dark hair longer now and falling in soft waves around her face. She froze at the sight of Patricia. Mrs. Montgomery, she said carefully. This is unexpected. Patricia swallowed hard. I heard you were home for summer break. I brought you something. She thrust the gift bag forward awkwardly. Lily accepted it with hesitation. Would you like to come in? Patricia nodded, following Lily into the living room of her foster parents' home. It was nothing like the Montgomery mansion, smaller, less ornate, but undeniably warm and loving. Photos of Lily adorned the walls, including one of her in her MIT freshman orientation. Your foster parents aren't home? Patricia asked. They're at work. They'll be back for dinner. Lily gestured for Patricia to sit. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. Finally, Lily opened the gift bag and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was an elegant silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a computer chip. Victoria helped me pick it out, Patricia admitted. She said you'd appreciate the design. It's beautiful, Lily said, genuinely touched. Thank you. Patricia twisted her hands in her lap. Lily, I owe you an apology. Many apologies, actually. Lily looked up in surprise. Patricia continued, the words clearly difficult for her. I was wrong about so many things. How I treated you. What I expected from you. The way I tried to control your future. She took a deep breath. The truth is, I was jealous. Jealous? Of me? Lily couldn't hide her astonishment. Of your intelligence. Your determination. Your goodness. Patricia's voice cracked slightly. I saw in you everything I had sacrificed in my own life for status and appearances. And it frightened me. Lily sat quietly, letting Patricia continue. When Alexander saw those qualities in you immediately, it made me face how shallow my own values had become. How I had raised Victoria to follow the same empty path. Patricia looked around the modest living room. You have found a real family here. And true success on your own terms. While she trailed off, looking smaller than Lily had ever seen her. Victoria told me you've been volunteering at the community center, Lily said gently. Patricia nodded. Teaching etiquette classes to young women entering the workforce. It's not much, but it's something real, at least. That's wonderful. Patricia looked directly at Lily for the first time. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see you now. The real you. And I'm proud of what you've accomplished. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. That means more than you know. As Patricia rose to leave, Lily walked her to the door. Mrs. Montgomery. Would you like to stay for dinner? My foster parents would be happy to meet you. And. She hesitated. Alexander is coming too. Patricia's eyes widened. Are you? And he? Lily blushed. We're taking things slowly. He wants me to focus on my education first. But yes, we're exploring possibilities. For a moment, Patricia's old calculating expression flickered across her face, the society matron assessing a valuable connection. But then it softened into something more genuine. He's a good man. He saw your worth when I was blind to it. So, dinner? Lily prompted. Patricia smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. I'd be honored. Thank you, Lily. As they stood together on the porch, the summer sun warming their faces, both women recognized that they stood at the threshold of something new, not just a doorway, but a chance for healing, for growth, and for redefining what family truly means. Uplifting music swells, you know, friends, life has a way of surprising us. The paths we think we should follow, the people we believe matter most, the values we hold dear, all of these can be transformed when we open our hearts to seeing people for who they truly are, not what they can do for us. Patricia thought wealth and status would bring her happiness. Victoria thought beauty and social position were her greatest assets. And Lily? Lily simply wanted to be seen, to matter, to have the chance to become her best self. In the end, it wasn't the millionaire's money or influence that changed their lives, it was his willingness to see beyond appearances and recognize true worth. And that's something we all have the power to do every day.